There are no excuses, and that's what I mean. If you're living behind, even if you cannot quantify it, there is something that comes along. But I use the money thing because you can immediately see this is where I am. Let's say you're 30 years old and you're not making 45. Let's say you're 30 years old and you're making $30,000. That means you need to get up in the morning and start living life with a sense of urgency. You need to start running your life like you are losing because you are running. You cannot walk. You cannot even speak while you need to start running. And understand something. The first thing is you need to be working 60+ hours a week. Let me say it again. If you're behind, you cannot just work 60 hours a week. You need to be working closer to 80. Yeah, that's right. That's why. Dude, you need to lose some goddamn sleep and get out there and bust 2 full-time jobs to get your money up. Because until you get your money up, you cannot lead an adult male life. Not a happy one. You can live a ratchet one. You can date some lower caliber females, 2s, 3s, and 4s. You're going to have a life of ratchets and fast food and honestly, good dude. It is going to be impossible for you to do what you need to do to catch up because you see, we talk about self-improvement. Here's where the rubber meets the road. You cannot hire a personal trainer, a nutritionist, life coach, image consultant, any of these things because you don't make enough money. If you can barely pay your bills, you need another source of income. Hammer this, but this is what you gotta do. You gotta start working. I said, if you fall under single no kids, you're not working 60 hours plus a week, you're lazy. But if you're behind financially, you need to be working closer to 80. Yeah, that's 16-hour days. That means all you do is sleep and work, sleep and work, sleep and work. Let me show you what this means. You need to go into overdrive. 0 excuses. No women, no dating, no chasing. No, none of that. Put yourself in jail for at least a year to get your mind right. But fuck here at the bar having a beer-looking and football game. Dude, you broke your own in these rooms and stuff and you're living a lie. That's why a lot of guys are depressed. So what you do is you kick life in overdrive and take the money, the additional money you make, and you need to double down on self-improvement. That means if you've been able to get by on your one job, the next job you need to go get a psych eval, find out what's holding you back, get a life coach. If you're out of shape, all the way, I also think get a personal trainer, take your second job and use it to start improving your life. Because when you start looking and liking who you see, you do better. Any CIA man who's on his purpose and know your pockets is on shore. When we talk about Yemen, we're going to go over to the spot and then we're going to have a couple of drinks. And, you ain't got number $20 in your pocket. And we say, okay, this round is on me. And, you cannot buy a round. So if you've had to live a life of going to the bathroom and around the drinks about, or even worse, you're not around people like that. It's always about masterfully by yourself, dude. You're dying on the inside every day because you don't go nowhere and do nothing because you don't want nobody to find out that you've been living below. That's real tough. You feel bad. So it's like I'm just go to work and go home. But see, what you're doing is beating yourself up. What you're doing is you're living life in jail. Better to say, you know what, I'm going to go out and work because at least you'll get this sense of satisfaction of going to being exhausted with your money is coming in. You go into life overdrive on this self-improvement. 0 excuses. No women. 0. And then the highest levels of accountability you need to confess to. You need to confess to your friends. I am a fuck up dude. I'm 35 years old and I'm still living life like a teenager. My wardrobe is like a teenager. My income is like a teenager. I date like I'm dating a teenager guy. Matter of fact, if I lost the job I have right now, there's no way I'd be able to go out and get another job making this much money. Because I have no skills. I've been living life like a teenage boy. And I tell you, I know dudes that did good dudes. Men don't have a worn suit since high school. Don't own one. What's in your closet? Nothing. I'm like, how do you get to life? And in this, not even just a matter of income. Some dudes actually make enough money to afford all these things, but they don't live a life like it. I'm like, so it's one thing to not have the money, but if you do have the money and your wardrobe and your appearance still looks like a boy, you still a boy. You may have more money than the first guy, so you feel like I'm better than that. Okay, but what are you doing in your life? If you're living a life to where you are not exposed to anything that you wouldn't have been exposed to as a teenage boy, Houston, we have a problem. You have to get really clear on what should a 30. Let's do say a 30-year-old man, and a 21-year-old man should be living two different lives. The 21-year-old man needs to be out there chasing it. I would expect a 2018 to 21-year-old to be in spring break, college parties, drinking faith in skirts, hitting the gym, hammy, But at 30, I would expect that to be way out of your system. You still go out, but you're not going to do, coin beer night places. You're not going to the 18 and up clubs. You have these going to the 25 and no club if it's still going out, but you 30, you should be out there clubbing things. You should be going to lounges and things like that because you will be all fucking man in the club. And at 35, this stuff should really be out of your system in 40. The only time you end up going to a club like that just referred to is if you happen to go back home for the holidays and you beat some friends out. 40-year-olds and 21 and up club is a pushover. You are lame and a loser. So the highest levels of accountability, you got to confess to folks around you. I'm living life on fire. And this is why you're going to have to hire mentors, life coaches, and everything else. The question I really want to ask, are you competent enough to live your life as an adult who's shit? But I didn't want to put that in chat room. The question I want to ask is, are you really competent enough to run your own life? I mean, ask yourself a question if you were you, because some actually are you really competent enough to be considered to be called a man. I mean, let me say this again. Let's say you were a 40-year-old dude, and you ain't never owned a suit. You got a job and you paying your bills, so that's cool. You're surviving. But life is not supposed to be surviving. Life is supposed to be the right thing. You know why you avoid a mirror? Because you don't want to look at yourself. And I see men who are competitive men, women who are beautiful, have no problem being out there because even if they lose the game, they still in it. So many guys, they use this tag of introvert as an outright lie, I'm about to say, and I don't mean no harm that so many guys today are using the tag introvert. Why the tag loser would have been 20 years ago. It doesn't mean you're mad in Kings, it means you're born. This means you're losing it. Here's what a loser was 23 years ago. A guy who was just working to work at Nagi. He'd come home after working in his one-bedroom apartment. He'd turn on the TV because there was no cable. He'd click on ABC, NBC, CBS whenever he had a watch, whatever local programming was made, grab a beer, and he'd go put a Hungry Man or a Swanson's TV dinner in of it. Or you go eat some shit like sardines or some Vine and sausages and crackers. He eat no spaghetti, weak spaghetti, hot dogs. So he's eating. He's got his own play. I mean, he may have a car. It's not, his older model, 10, 15 years held together. It's not dirty, but it's, he. Right. And the way you want to. And then you look at this dude and ask you, do you 35 years old? Is this what you thought you would be when you were a little boy, when you were 8 years old? Did you think you'd be this now? But that was a lot. We called those guys losers, and those guys knew they were losing. So we got too many guys today who are losing and blaming of everything else. Life is not meant to be survived. It's meant to be thrived. And I'm definitely not living life like I should be. Well, I understand some if you're not living life like you should be, and there's only one thing to do. You have to go into overdrive on self-improvement, and you're not qualified to do it yourself. Again, I don't mean to be rude. I'm not trying to be hurtful, but you're not competent enough to run this part of your life.